A question that I have been asked too often is, what are the struggles of Kurds in Iran? If you truly want to answer this question, so you need to go back to the roots of these struggles with the creation of Iranian nationalism and the struggles of Kurds to maintain their Kurdish identity. Stay tuned, I'm going to tell you all about it. Iranian nationalism emerged in the late 19th and early 20th century, and more precisely with the conditional movement, a phenomenon did not previously exist in the history of this country. The fruit of Iranian nationalism was the term Iranian nation, which was officially mentioned in the first constitution of this country in the year 1906. Nation of Iran is a combination of a fantasy and artificial term that was integrated for political purposes because it was formed on the basis of Persian language and culture and Shiri sector. It did not consider the identity of other nations living in this geographical body called Iran, like the Kurds. 20 years after the birth of Iranian nationalism and the emergence of its product called the Iranian nation, Iranian nationalism entered another stage of its life with the accession of Reza Khan Pahlavi to the throne of the modern nation state of Iran. The Iranian nation, which until then only been written on a piece of paper, entered a practical phase and had to be created in practice, and thus the process of nation building in Iran began. This process of nation building was based on one state, one nation, and one language, but in order to promote it, other nations' languages and cultures must be dissolved and assimilated into the Persian language and culture. This process began by attacking the cultures and languages of other nations using the tools of government such as the army, government institution, and bureaucracy. Thus, the process of nationalization in Iran took place in a non-democratic manner and through the use of military force, repression, and suffocation, and beyond the will of the Iranian people. This was the starting point of the national oppression in a modern and systematic way in Iran, which began with the formation of the Reza Shah nation state. Kurdish nationalism was also formed in response to and as defense against Iranian nationalism, which was an aggressive nationalism confronting and challenging it. Thus began a long struggle that is now 1 century old. During the 20th century, this was an identity-seeking struggle. The Kurdish community in Kurdistan had shown its feelings, thoughts, and position in various ways to prove its national identity and achieve a political goal. The ways in which national identity is expressed can be categorized into several areas: armed struggle, civil disobedience, the creation of national art and literature, and civic activities. The stand and reaction of the Iranian nationalism toward the situation of the Kurds and their national issue in the past century is currently a complete security perspective and is not seen as a political issue and the reality of Iranian society. Therefore, not only has Iran never taken any serious steps to resolve it through negotiation and dialogue, but it has also sought to remove this problem from forefront through military aggression, the militarization of Kurdistan, assassination, execution, imprisonment, and exile. In fact, it aims to end the problem through these methods. In the past century, the vision of the policy of Iranian nationalism have been implanted by 3 central governments: Reza Shah, Mohammad Reza Shah, and in the past 42 years by the regime of the Islamic Republic. Reza Shah tricked and ambushed the Kurdish figure Ismail Agha and killed him. Reza Shah's son Mohammad Reza Shah hanged Qazi Muhammad and his companions, and the Islamic Republic assassinated 2 Kurdish leaders, Qasim Lu and Sharaf Kandi, in the heart of civilized Europe. We can compare that Mohammad Reza Shah executed 11 Kurdish figures in the Fayzullah al-Begi on charges of collaborating with the Republic of Kurdistan, but the Islamic Republic shot dead 59 young Kurds from a small city like Mahabad in 1 day. On the day that allies ousted Reza Shah from power and deported him to South Africa, several Kurdish tribal leaders who did not adhere to the centralized system of Iran were in prison, up to the moment when Mohammad Reza Shah left Iran forever with tears in his eyes at Tehran airport. He had imprisoned Kurdish figures like Aziz Yusufi, Ghani Belurian, Reza Shaltuki, and Ali Amoui, all with prison sentence of 6 years each. Today, the oldest political prisoners in Iran are Kurdish men and women. For example, Zainab Jalali has been in prison for 6 years and has been sentenced to life imprisonment. Osman Mustafapur, Muhammad Nazari, and Kamal Sharifi have each been in prison for 27, 25, and 10 years. We view war as the most hated and disgusting phenomenon in human history, which is why we have never wanted to take up arms and fight. What could be more bitter and unpleasant than for a child to be orphaned, for a mother to mourn her child, and for a young woman to become a widow? It does not matter if the victims are Arabs, Persians, Turkish, or Kurdish. These disasters all caused by war, and the only reason for war in Kurdistan was pure racism and nationalism of our occupiers, who didn't want to lose their colonial interest in giving us rights and more cultural freedom. We have never attacked any nation, and we have never occupied the land of any nation. What do we want? To live freely in our ancestral land and have the right to determine our political destiny is our only crime. We as the Kurdish people living in eastern Kurdistan have suffered under the corrupted mindset of our occupiers, and we have witnessed genocides and massacres, imprisonments and torture. We have witnessed systematic attempts of our occupiers to bring poverty in the Kurdish areas and turn us into kulbers so they can shoot us dead and have a reason for it. Islamic State of Iran brought hell upon my people, but it was the previous Shah of Iran and his father who prepared the fuel. And today when I see my people in the cities of Mahabat, Shino, Wirme, Kermanshan, Diwandere, Khani, Sine, Meriwan, Elam, and so on, facing a massacre, while I as a Kurd can't participate in a demonstration outside of Iran with a Kurdish flag to support them without facing racism from Persians, makes me wonder, and I can't stop myself to ask, should Kurds stay in Iran while I see Persians adoring the Prince of Iran, who is following the ideology of his murderer father and chanting slogans such as Javid Shah, which means long live the king? Probably the most ironic aspect of this demonstration is to see the followers of the king and the prince himself chanting the slogan Jin Jian Azadi, the same slogan that is a version of those slogans their kings massacred us because of it. While I see they don't even want to say the true name of Jina and prefer her slave name Massa, makes me wonder, do I need to renew my immigration case after the revolution, or I can safely go back home and hug my family?